All right, hello guys, welcome back. I just got back from Korea not too long ago, last week, and here we are with our latest webinar for February. This is the first webinar of February. So welcome to another amazing opportunity to hear from the developers yourselves. In our latest Novedge Best of the Best webinar series, we have with us Bunkspeed Experience Specialist Brian Hillner. He's here to cover the essential tools available in Bunkspeed Pro Suite. This webinar is for designers of all levels in search of new ways to improve quality and workflow efficiency for their current visualization pipeline. Today, Brian's going to show you how to use Bunkspeed Pro Suite along with all the new and nifty features that will be in this version. Our presenter, here's a little bit, there's a bio about Brian. Brian Hillner has played an integral part in developing the product and producing digital assets for multiple clients. With an industrial design degree focusing in transportation design, Brian is able to understand and tailor cutting-edge software experiences for our target audiences. His unique blend of industrial design, photography, and sales has helped him to promote Bunkspeed's ecosystem of software solutions as a leader in the design community. Brian Hillner's passion for design, photography, and outdoors allowed him to travel to unique destinations and to capture nature's inspirational simplicity. Very, very natural. Brian Hillner holds a BS in design with honors from the College of Design, Architecture, Art, and Planning, DAAP, at the University of Cincinnati in Ohio. In addition to today's presentation, Brian Hillner will be here after the presentation with Bunkspeed Director of Product Management, David Randall, to answer your questions live during our Q&A session. But before we start off the presentation, we would like to share with you some of what we've been working on at Novedge. All right, if you want to purchase the latest version of Bunkspeed Pro Suite, you can visit our product page at Novedge. As the leading online design software store, we pretty much have the best prices around. Bunkspeed Pro Suite is available worldwide as a digital download without any sales tax through our Novedge website. So if you have any questions, feel free to speak with our sales specialist, Bob, at bob@novedge.com. Also at Novedge, we've created 3 communities as an online place where you can collaborate and communicate with other like-minded professionals. At our communities, we scour the internet for the latest industry buzz to share with you. Furthermore, we encourage community members to participate in the discussion. The process to sign up is easy and it's a breeze, and with that you have access to a weekly community newsletter where we break down the week's most interesting industry headlines. For access to discussions that matter, sign up and register today. Also, in our next upcoming Best of the Best webinar, episode 65, 3D application engineer Paul Gabory will be covering the newest features in ZBrush 4 R5 in our next upcoming webinar. Get an in-depth understanding of how panel loops can be used for several modeling techniques. Furthermore, Paul will cover hard surface modeling, take a look at new polish features, and finish off the webinar with the BPR render system to create a toon or comic book render. Registration is free, but space is limited, so for more information on how to sign up, check it out at novedge.com/webinar/65. Today's webinar will be about 40 minutes long, and in a moment, Brian will have the floor. If you have any questions at any time during the presentation, please feel free to post them into the chat window so that David Randall can answer them, and we can look at those questions live together during the Q&A session. Today's webinar will be recorded, so if you want to rewatch episode 64 today in its entirety, as always, you can find it on our Novedge webinar series channel through Vimeo and YouTube. With that said, Brian, are you there?
I sure am, Kevin. Thank you for that amazing introduction.
It's cool. It's cool. I didn't know you were from Ohio, though, so I thought you were actually native Californian. I'm so sorry.
Good old Midwest boy.
Okay, I will transition to you right now. Give me a second.
Very good.
And 3, 2, and 1.
Excellent. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Very good. Well, first of all, thank you again, Kevin, for that great introduction. It's a pleasure to be here today to show all the users this powerful tool that we've created here with our Bunkspeed Pro Suite. I'd like to say that in our opinion, we've created the easiest, most intuitive rendering software available, and I'm going to show you how to do that right now with just a few quick, easy steps. So this is our opening interface here before you import any model. I prepared this cooler demo here for us to go through, so let's go ahead and open this up. And this model is actually was modeled by one of our users. His name's Chris Hageman from ideasusa.com. He was kind enough to let us use this model for this demonstration today. Okay, so this is our main viewport and our main interface here. I'm going to go ahead and run through our, I guess our hotkeys, our main tabs to operate our software here. This first button, actually this floating panel here, this is our main sort of hotkeys and interface and tools that you use as you navigate through our software. This first button here is called Ray Trace, and what that is, that basically changes the model that you see here in this viewport from this performance mode that you see here that still looks great, but actually when you turn this ray tracing on, what that does is it creates scientific real-time calculations of lighting and shadow to provide photorealistic results. Now I haven't even painted the model or anything, and it already looks great. We have a nice floor reflection in there, so, and then the longer I let it sit here, the longer it reses up. The noise that you see kind of in the shadows gets resolved, and the lighting becomes more accurate, and the shadows and highlights become more crisp and clear. So for this right now, I'll just turn this off as I go through the rest of these quick tool demonstrations here. Now, as in any 3D software, our hotkey is Alt. So when I hold down Alt in the viewport here, Alt and left mouse button rotates the model. So once again, Alt is our main hotkey. Alt and right mouse button zooms in and out. Alt middle mouse button, if you hold the middle mouse button down, pans throughout the image. And this is actually moving the camera. I'm not rotating the model. I'm actually rotating the camera around the model. And that'll become, I'll tell you a little bit more about that when we do some animation. And then Alt, and if you use the scroll wheel, what that does is that changes the focal length of your camera, of the lens on your camera. And you'll notice here in this window where my cursor is, you can actually see an exact readout of that focal length. So if you have a photography background, you can actually set this to around 35 for a 35 mil lens, 50, or a super telephoto if you want to crank it up to over in the hundreds. But for me, I like to usually operate around 35. It gives a nice sort of perspective. It's not too forced. Great perspective to work in. So that was our Ray Trace button. This area here, these are our configurations. We have an entire webinar that we've already recorded about configurations. And what these do is it helps you to switch back and forth between materials and environments. I won't go into that today, but that's definitely a powerful tool. Here we have our selection tool where we can select materials, parts, groups, and also materials. This is our move tool, or object manipulation, where you can move the object, you can scale the object, and change its pivot point location. And then this third button here, these are just the camera tools, the hotkeys that I just mentioned by holding down Alt and using various mouse button clicks. And then this button here, this is our render, our output button. I'll go ahead and go through this in some more detail, but you can output a screenshot, which basically captures your screen grab of this viewport as the program sees here. You can do a full high-res regular output as far as changing the file formats from JPEG to TIFF. You have resolution controls here. Also, the render settings, the number of passes, this basically means the higher number of passes, the crisper and clearer the image gets, as I mentioned before, when you turn the ray tracing on. And I'll go through some more of these in a little bit as we render outputs. You can also do animations and turntables. Stun studies are really cool. What that actually is you can set a location, longitude and latitude within the world, and the sun rises. You can tell where the sun to rise, and then it sets over on the other side of the screen, and that actually shows real-time lighting, which can be a great useful tool for interior design and architecture. So you can actually see how the play of light happens throughout an entire 24 or 12-hour period. So that's pretty cool. So that's our main floating palette over here. Our tabs over here, we have our 5 main tabs. The first tab here is our model properties, where you can click on a model and click on change the parameters as far as location and scale. This is our Materials tab. I'm going to go through this very soon as far as applying materials to our model. This one here is our Environments tab. I'll go through this as well in more detail soon. So this is how you can control the environment settings as far as size and brightness and color, and also switch back and forth between environments. This is our Cameras tab. You can create multiple cameras here, and these are all the camera properties. I'll go through those as well. And this is our Libraries tab. Now this is actually pretty cool. I'm going to go ahead and start painting the model now, so you can kind of see how this Library tab works. So if I go over to my Materials tab, I don't have any materials in here. I can either create a new material by selecting new material. We can choose a slew of different types. Once again, we have an entire webinar, a tutorial about these materials, how to select, and as far as what outputs you'd like for the settings, and as far as what the material type will give you. So we can go ahead and create just a paint here if we like. We can change the color parameters, whatever we want. We have places to add texture maps, which I'll go ahead and show you shortly. So that's all it is. Create a material. You can go ahead and paint it on the top, and there we go. Now we have a red cooler top, so it's that simple. You can create materials that way, or you can go into our material library. And here, with the program, there's preloaded hundreds of materials, as you see here as I click through all these folders. Now these all exist in our software on your desktop, on your hard drive. So all of these are already what we call our local library. And now if you click on the little global image here, these are our toggle buttons. This one here, this is our local library. And then when I click over here, that's going to be our web library. And as you see now in the upper right of our screen, I'm already logged in as Brian Hillner. And what this means, this gets you access to our community. Now with our software, not only do you get this amazing rendering tool, but you also get an entire community of materials and environments and textures uploaded by us at Bunkspeed and also uploaded by users for you to use at your disposal. So let me go ahead and show you that real quick. I'm going to go ahead and go to our community page, which is bunkspeed.com/community. And this is what I was talking about. You have a bunch of environments, tons of materials, as you see here, categorized by all these different categories as far as plastics and mesh and liquids. And all these you can navigate through online. But every material you see here exists also in our desktop software. So you go ahead and go to bunkspeed.com, create a free account, and then log in up over here in the right portion of the screen, and then you're able to click this web library. And just as I mentioned, this one here, this is your local, and then this toggles between your web library. And that's going to go ahead and pull up all of the assets that exist on this website. So it's a unique, super awesome tool to navigate from the website here to our material asset library as it's loading. Let me go ahead and there we go. And so from this library, now all these folders here exist on our community on bunkspeed.com/community, and it's a really great way to share materials. Users can create materials and upload them to our website for you to download here in our app. So it's a very seamless transition from creating materials, sharing with friends, sharing with other users, and bringing it into our software to paint your model. So for this one here, we're going to go ahead and continue painting our model. Let's go ahead in the community. Let's choose a plastic since we are painting a cooler. Let's see if these load. I'm looking for a white plastic. That'll be good. Probably a smooth white. Let's go with the smooth white plastic. So I just drag it from this material palette, this material tab, over to our model, and it appears we're on a model just like that. And that's one way to paint the model. Now if I go back over to my materials tab, my local library here, I've also created materials that I saved specifically just for this webinar. So this is actually a nice blue rubber to use on the cooler here on the bottom. Got a handle color here. So I can drag the materials over onto the model, but a nice shortcut is once I get one material, like let's say this white material on the model, I don't have to keep dragging over and over and over again. Our hotkey is you hold down Shift and click the left mouse button on the material that you want to copy. Hold down Shift again and right mouse button, and that then pastes the material on that part. So you can materialize, as I'm doing here, parts very, very quickly and efficiently. Let's go ahead and take the same blue and copy it over here on these hinges. So that looks pretty cool already. I'm going to go ahead and turn ray tracing on. We have on, off. We also have blend. What blend does is it lets me use this performance or raster mode as I move around, getting my composition together. But then as soon as I let go, it magically turns on ray tracing. And we have this amazing, image with the reflections and then the realistic lighting. So let's go ahead and continue paving. Got a brushed aluminum here I'll use for the Coke can. And also a texture, a color map here, which I'll go ahead and show you that in a sec. And let's go ahead and use this metallic blue that I created for the logo. There we go. So that's looking pretty good. Got that nice and painted. I'll let that res up just a little bit so you can kind of see a little bit more of what we're talking about when we're turning this ray tracing function on, which is basically realistic, scientific lighting and shadow and reflection calculations. So it's extremely, extremely true to life. So I'll go ahead and let this res up a sec, and you can check that out as the noise gets resolved. The image gets a little crisper. Okay, let's see. All right, so now we have most of the cooler here painted as we see fit. Now when I turn this off, let's go ahead and I'm going to zoom in here and you can check out these textures. So as we see here, the blue paint, the blue plastic here, that has a texture to it, and the white doesn't. But even though since this is going to be a cooler, these plastic pieces here will have some molding marks on them, to rough up the surface a little bit. So let's go ahead and show you how to do that in these material properties. So I'm going to go ahead and go to our Materials tab. I'll click on this white material that I'd like to add a bump map to. Here we have in our texture palette, our texture little drop down, we have 4 different ways you can add textures to parts and to materials. We have a color texture, which is I click on this Coke can here. That's all this Coke can is. It's just this texture of the Coca-Cola label. We have a specular, an alpha, and bump. I'm going to go ahead and double click on the bump, and I'm going to add a texture called molded plastic, because that's pretty much, like I said, what it's going to look like in real life. So we have that bump on there, and now we're going to go ahead and click on this part, and I have to change the texture mapping. We also have a webinar that discusses the texture mapping as well, but for this application, box would work best. And as you see here, the texture comes in rather large. So that's okay because we have these tools here that we can go ahead and scale that up or down. So since that looks a little big, let's go ahead and change this tiling to 5. And as you see, it now gets even, the bump gets even smaller. And if we change it to 10, it'll get even smaller. Let's keep it around 5 so we can still see that nice texture we have there. And likewise, as I added the texture to this part, I'm also going to put that same material on this part as well, and I'm going to change that part texture mapping to box. And then I will also do the same for these handles that I added. Just want to make sure that that's also on box. There we go. So we have the textures there, and we'll put the texture there as well. We'll change that to box mapping. Now they're all the same scale, same texture. Go ahead and turn ray tracing back on. You can get to see how the image looks so far. Let that res up. Okay, so it's a little bit of the texture mapping. Now you have the nice rubber texture on the blue majority of the cooler here, and then you have the nice molded plastic texture on the white parts, the top here. You can actually see some of the reflections since this Coke can is a brushed aluminum. It's very reflective. You can see some of the environment and lighting or reflections, and also the ground shadow and the glossiness, which I'll show you all how to do momentarily. Looks a little plane up here on the top surface. So actually, I created a decal that we're going to go ahead and throw on here. You can create materials in our Materials tab, And I can also right mouse click and say create new decal. And a decal, for all intents and purposes, is basically just a sticker. I created this in Photoshop, saved it out as a tip with a transparent background. I'm going to go ahead and apply this to this top surface. And sometimes it doesn't like the first time I apply this texture, but I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste it and then apply this second texture, and we should be good to go. Go ahead and let that res up. All right, I'll delete this guy. So now we see here, I'm going to turn this off so we can use performance mode. Now we see here I have this sticker, and it does say here goes here with an arrow. So I'm going to go ahead and line that up here right over the cup holder. We can go ahead and select our Move tab with our decal selected. So I can go ahead and move this over to the top of the cooler here, right about where we'd like it. I can also scale using these boxes here. I can rotate and also reposition. So right about there would probably be pretty good. There we go. So now we have a nice decal on the top surface there, and I'll show you how to manipulate that. I'll go ahead and turn ray tracing back on so you can see how that looks now. Once again, let that kind of res up a little bit so you can see the powerful tool that ray tracing is. And like I said, the longer you let it sit here or cook, you can see the pass count over here on the bottom of the screen. And that is a direct correlation to the pass count that you may have seen in the render dialog box. And I'll show you that a little bit later when we output some final high-res images. So for this model here, anything over, I'd say 500 to 500, at least 500, maybe 800 or so passes would be pretty photorealistic as far as getting the noise and the shadows and to resolve a little bit. You can still see some noise there, but that all gets resolved pretty quickly. So now I'm going to show you a cool tool called part splitting. Most of the time, and let's say I wanted to create a different material break or a color break even on this blue cooler here because it's looking a little too thick proportionally, so I'd like to go ahead and change that with a nice pop of color or a color break. And I'll show you how to do that here. Now this all here, when I go ahead and click on my part selection tool, this here is all one part. So if I were to try to make a color break here, like let's say on the bottom of the cooler, I wouldn't be able to do that in normal 3D rendering software. I'd have to go back to Alias or SolidWorks or 3D Studio Max, whichever your 3D CAD data file program of choice is. I'd have to go back into that program and part split this tool out and then import it back into a rendering software. So what we've done is we've created a part splitting tool so you can do all of that right here in our software very, very, very easily. So I'll right mouse click on the part. I'll click Extract Part, and the default tolerance is set to 20. And what that means is I'm trying to split the bottom of the cooler out. And the tolerance here is basically a good analogy would be the magic wand tolerance in Photoshop. We're all familiar with Photoshop. So this is very similar. The larger the number, the more polygons around my initial click it will grab. But I'm going to go ahead, since I just want the bottom here, just want that bottom sort of underneath the waves there, part splitted. So I'm going to go ahead and change the tolerance down to about 10 or so. There we go. And now that grabbed just the bottom part that I wanted to make a different color, different material. So I'll go ahead and click Execute Split. I'll close it, and now that's its own part, separate from this top part here, but where they once were the same, now they're different. Now I can add a material to this part. Let's go ahead and right mouse click, create a new material. Two ways we can do this. I'm going to go ahead, let's say we just wanted to use a matte green for this material. So I can throw that on there. It looks all right. Or what I could do, I'm going to turn ray tracing on just so you can see how it looks as well. Or what I could do, let's say I want to use that same texture. I really like that rubber texture we have on this blue. What I could do, I can then highlight this texture of this material, Control-C, Control-V to copy and paste. So now I have this material which is the same color still and has that texture, that bump map. I'll drag it on this part that I've part split out. And now what I can do is then change the color of that material very, very easily to get back to around that same hue of the green that I liked before. So now, when I zoom in here, you can see that that green now has the same texture that the blue did before. So now I'm really liking that. I wanted to part split that out. Go ahead and let this res up, get a nice composition going. You can see the ray tracing work becoming more and more photorealistic. So now our model's looking pretty good. It's all painted. Everything's looking great. We've got the textures where we want. We've got the nice beer can goes here sticker on the top. Everything's looking good. Got a nice ground shadow and everything. Decent lighting. And now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and show you the difference between switching environments in our software and how that changes the lighting of this model here. I'm going to turn this back off, go back in my performance mode. I usually like to work in with ray trace off while I'm setting up the scene, and then when I'm composing my final images, I'll go ahead and turn that on, usually with blend, so you can get that nice sort of sense of magic as I let go of the mouse and controls, and it just starts to become super photorealistic. So in our Environments tab here, I already have this environment that I've created as well here with the background color. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to my local library. Let's pull some more environments in so I can show you how to light the product, the model differently. Now all of these here, since it is on my local library, all of these come preloaded in our software. Everything from deserts and lakes to outdoor roads, photo studios, and also users can create environments and upload them to the community for us to access when I toggle to the web library. But for this, I'm just going to use some of the environments that exist on my local library. So let's see what's a good one here to use to show. We can open up this one called Chrome Studio. So we'll just click on an environment, drag it in, and then as you see, the environment changes. And this is actually a good point for me to show you how lighting works in our software. It's super easy. It's a breeze. You don't have to set up any lights. We do have lights if you'd like to set them up, but our software uses what are HDRs to light your material, to light your model. And as you see here, that studio that I dragged in comes in as a sphere. And as I zoom in within the sphere, this is where our model sits, is within the sphere, and then the lighting on the map to the outside of the sphere then lights the model by way of using the light pixels, the white pixels here in this case, to light the actual model. And I'm going to rotate the environment so you can see how it changes the reflections on the Coke can and also the lighting of the model. And then you can also see the environment rotate as well with it. The hotkey for that is Control, Alt, and then left mouse click. And then I'm going to scroll through here, and you can see how this environment is rotating around it, changing the reflections on the Coke can and changing the subtle lighting of the product itself as far as the highlights and changing the direction of light. Let's go ahead and put another studio in here. Let's go ahead and use we can use this kitchen. This will work like if it's sitting on a kitchen table. See, now you can see here how the environment sort of the HDR lights the image, and all these reflections. You'll have the fridge reflected onto the cooler. All of these will be reflected onto the model as well. Now that I have a couple environments grabbed from our library, I'm going to show, I'm going to hide the environment image for each one and change the background color to white. And that way it can, as a product designer myself, that way you can get a direct one-to-one correlation of what the model will look like rendered on a white background, which us product designers enjoy doing with ease, which is a great thing about our software. So now I'm in the kitchen lighting environment. I'll go ahead and click on my Chrome Studio lighting environment. You can see how that changes. I'll go back to my original environment here, and you'll see how that changes. Now I have a blue background here. And I'll go back again. So lighting in our software is incredibly, incredibly simple. And like I said, all these environments come preloaded into our software to use at your disposal, and you can easily create environments your own by yourself in Photoshop. So this preview image here you'll see on the upper right of my screen. That image you can find You can see the dialog where the location of that image exists. And open it up in Photoshop. You can tweak that image. You can add more light. You can paint on this, and that will then update automatically in our software when you click the environment, update environment, or you can turn auto update on. So literally, you can have Photoshop open, and you can have Bunkspeed Pro open. And with that, each pen stroke, each brush stroke in Photoshop will be automatically updated in our software, so you can get a direct response of how you're changing and lighting your environment in Photoshop and then also in our software. So it's looking pretty good. We've got some soft shadows down here. I'm going to go ahead and put our original environment back on with the ground glossiness. So it's a little bit of how to light products in our software with extreme ease. And we have some sliders here within our environment tab. One here is our ground reflection, and as you see here, as I let this res up, you can see that the product is reflected in the ground, which gives it that nice touch of added drama and a touch of added expense and a nice touch to your product. So I can change that here, kind of like a high-end sort of Apple almost feel, and you can get that on the fly just by changing the slider, which is very easy. You can also change the ground glossiness, which is in layman's term like the fuzziness of that the ground reflection here. Let's go ahead and bring that back down a little bit to where it was. We can have that nice glossy floor. And we can also change the shadow intensity. So you can really go ahead and crank the slider up a little bit, and you can see the shadow become more intense. This works in more of a user preference, very subjective, but you're more than welcome to crank this up as high as you want. We'll go ahead and keep it back down to around where it was. There we go. And I'll go ahead and let that res up a little bit so you can see what this what our cooler now looks like. There we go. Okay, so now that we have our cooler all painted, it's all materialized, it's looking great. We have our environment all set up, its lighting is awesome. We're digging the blue background. We have a nice ground reflection going on as well. Let's go ahead and set up some cameras here so I can show you some cool camera tools. So now we just have a default camera here, but I can go ahead and right mouse click and select new camera. And what that'll do, that'll add a new camera here for us to manipulate and play around with. And this floating box here, this is our camera's hotkey kind of floating box here. We can switch back and forth between our cameras. If we had more than two, they'd all appear here in this drop down. We can also add cameras here, so it's nice to be able to just access this on the fly at any time. And what I'd just like to show you now is something pretty cool. It's called depth of field. So with this camera that I created, go ahead and click on it to show its properties here. We can add depth of field to each camera, and each camera's depth of field is specific to that camera. So I can have a depth of field on camera 1 here, which we'll go ahead and rename and say depth of field cam. And the default camera can just be the regular default free working camera. Let's go back to depth of field cam and zoom in on this logo here. I'm using the scroll wheel and Alt to get a more dramatic focal length. Something maybe about like this, let's say. Looks pretty good. I'm going to turn depth of field on. I'm going to turn ray tracing on so I can see the depth of field. I'm going to click on this eye here, which basically I can select my focal point. So for this, let's say we want to focus on about this area of the O. Now we have our focal point selected, which is this area here. Now I'm going to go ahead and crank up this aperture, which is related to the f-stop as well, so those move separately. And now you can see here that I'm getting a really, really nice depth of field. The O is now in focus, and I'm getting a nice fall off here with the focus, and I've got the nice depth of field in the back. And I can change this by clicking on the I again. Let's say we want the F to be in focus. Now the F's in focus. And the rest of the logo, it's sort of getting blurred out with the depth of field. So you can create the depth of field is a nice aspect that you can, a nice property that you can turn on for each camera to add more drama to your renders and composition. Okay, so those are some of the cameras. And now something else we have here is a drop-down of camera post-processing. I'm going to go ahead and create a new camera, and we'll name this one post-processing. Okay, and let's go ahead and zoom out. Turn back on blend. There we go. And we'll go ahead and try to set up our money shot here, our final awesome image. Do something like this. All right, we'll let that res up. And I'm going to go ahead and turn on post-processing. And once again, just like depth of field, post-processing is camera-specific, so you can have different post-processing settings on different cameras. Let's go ahead and add a vignette, a subtle vignette here to this camera. There you go. Go ahead and lighten it up a little bit, maybe about 1.5. It's looking pretty good. You can change the exposure. Maybe I can show you how this gets a little overexposed. We did about 3. It'll really blow out some of the highlights, the white areas. Go ahead and keep this around 1.25. And we can also add a little bit of darkness to it. Let's see what 1 will give us. 1 will give us pretty high, so let's do about 0.2 or so. There we go. So it's adding a bit more drama into the rendering. And the nice thing about these post-processing settings is you can turn ray tracing on, so you get your nice photorealistic image, and adjust all these settings without having the pass count to reset. So remember, when I move my model, the pass count has to reset again. But the nice thing about all these settings within post-processing is that you can continue to tweak these on the fly as your model is revving up. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this on and off so you can kind of see the difference in post-processing for this camera. Cool, so it's looking good. Got our nice money shot together. Got a nice balanced composition. I'm probably going to do a render here. So I know I'm going to add some text, maybe some call-outs to the right of the image. Looks pretty good. Let that res up. Okay, so I've got a couple different cameras, a couple different angles, and I'm ready to go ahead and do some renders here. So when I click on this render tab, like I said, you can do JPEG, TIFF, a multitude of different file formats. There's also passes here. Those are also discussed in some of our tutorials online. I can change the resolution, the pass count here. Like I said, for this one, we'll probably do about 800. It does have some texture, so that'll res up nicely. And now I can go ahead and start the render. Now this will bring up, in a separate tab here, this will bring up the actual render as it's initializing and completing. So we'll go ahead and let this load, and I'll show you 2 ways how we can render. This is one of the ways where we can do a direct render from the program here. And there you go. There's our image. It's coming up. It's the count remaining decreasing significantly. It'll probably only take about 3 minutes or so to render. But we're not going to sit here for that whole time. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you the second way how to render. I'm going to go ahead and cancel this render here. And you can also have it render in the background if you'd like it. You'd like to continue working. And click no for this. So that's one way to send this image here to render. Or we can also send it to the queue. Now the queue is a really awesome feature that exists in our Pro and higher level software. The queue is basically like a list. So I can send multiple views, multiple cameras, multiple compositions to the queue to set up and initialize, and then I can hit start queue, walk away, take a nap, go on my lunch. Maybe I'm done working for the day, and hit start queue, and then it'll render these while I'm gone. So when I come back to my computer, all these images that I sent to the queue are now rendered, and it's just an extremely efficient tool. So as you see here in the upper right, once I sent that to the queue, that file was very fast sent over to the queue. The queue pops up, and there we go. That first job here is this image, this rendering that I sent over. And like I said, the nice thing about queue is you can have multiple jobs at once. So let's go ahead and change to our depth of field camera. Go ahead and turn this guy back on. Double check, make sure all the lighting's great. Depth of field's awesome. Go ahead and render this out as well. Let's go ahead and click render. Send to the queue again. I'll send it to the queue. And it's already sent to the queue, so I'll go ahead and pull up queue. And there we go, there's my second job. And I have 2 jobs in the queue, and you can just keep adding camera angles and different shots as you see fit. And then let's say I'm done for the day. So let's go ahead and hit start queue. It'll go ahead and run through, start initializing these jobs. It'll notice which one I sent first, so it'll render that first. There'll be a nice little thumbnail of the image here. We'll go ahead and wait for that to initialize. Like I said, you can have, I only have 2 images, two jobs here, but you can have multiple jobs. Be ready to hit start queue and just walk away, and the program does the job while you're not there. So there we go. We've got that. It'll render that first job, and then it'll automatically start the second job seamlessly. So there we go. That's how to render in our software. You have 2 different options, and this queue is a really, really nice, handy feature. Like I said, that exists in our Pro software. Okay, so I showed you a little bit how to paint a model. First, how to import it, how to paint and do some material manipulations, environments, and cameras, and doing some nice renders and outputs. And now, before I run out of time here, I'd like to show you how to animate in our software. And down here is our animation timeline. And usually, I've used multiple 3D softwares before, and animating is, for me, was always the hardest learning curve to surmount. In our software, rather, in Bunkspeed software, it is by far the easiest, most intuitive way to animate that I've ever seen. And I'm not just saying that because I work there. I've used plenty of other software before. It's very simple. Let's go ahead and animate this handle here. I want to animate it hinging at this pivot point here. I'll go ahead and grab my my slider here, this yellow line, and make sure that's at 0. So I want to start the animation at 0. I'll right mouse click on the part, select Add Keyframe, and as you see, a new part animation sequence here appeared in our timeline with a keyframe. That little tick there, that's a keyframe. Now I'm going to move the line to about, let's say, 2 seconds, because I want this handle animation to last 2 seconds. Make sure the part's selected. I'll click Move, and I'll double check that the pivot point is correct, that it will pivot correctly within the model. I'll go ahead and pivot that down, and there we go. It automatically created that other keyframe right there at 2 seconds. Now I can scrub through here. Let's say we want to bring it back up, but when I want to bring it back up to the top, I only want it to last 1 second. So we'll go ahead and move our yellow bar again, bring it back up to the top about there. There we go. And we've got our nice animation. It's that simple, just by moving this yellow bar, adding keyframe, manipulating parts. There we go. And now we've got that animation all ready to go. Now I do have a longer animation that I'd like to show you that I set up for this webinar. I'm going to close out of this one here. We'll save this just in case. And I'll bring up the animation I created so I can show you how to animate a little bit further, a little bit deeper in our software. So now as you see here, we have that same animation timeline, but now there's a couple more animation sequences for the part animations. They're still very simple. All these were created by moving the yellow line here along our timeline, adding keyframes. I'm going to play this from here so you can see what this looks like. We've got a nice handle animation. The top areas here open up. The cooler rotates, and there we go, it closes. All right, so that's the animation that I created. And what I'd like to show you now is, as you see this camera right here, that camera will move in the beginning of this animation right there. And what that is, that's actually an animation on the camera itself. So you can animate camera specific as well. Let's go ahead and go to our cameras palette. Here we have the red little icon here, the red dot. That means this camera does actually have an animation on it. So here's that camera that you saw moving in my viewport. I'll go ahead and click play. And there we go. We have a nice slow pan of this animation here. Cooler turns, and then the camera zooms right back in. I'll go ahead and let that play again. And that was just very simply and easily created by creating keyframes, also keyframing the camera movement. And I'd like to show you a little bit more about that camera movement right here. This area here, this is our ribbon. And what the ribbon is, it's a visual representation of camera animation in your environment, in your viewport here. So that's the same path that camera took, as you see here. And those white squares, those white cubes, those are the individual keyframes. And the cool thing about this timeline is that we can select those individual keyframes here and move those keyframes. So let's say I wanted the camera to kind of swing out a little bit and down. And now you see that the ribbon is moving with the camera. Almost it looks like a roller coaster. So it changes, as I change these keyframes, you can have a nice visual representation of how the camera is animated within the environment. So let's go ahead and bring this one out a little bit wider as well. There we go. Now you can see a difference from the original path. I'm going to switch back to that camera, go back to the beginning, and let's see how we changed it. So we didn't change it too much, but we did move some of the camera. Now it's a lower angle than it was during the first animation as it zooms back in. So that's a little bit of how to manipulate cameras using the animation, the camera ribbon here. That looks pretty good. Okay. And now let's go ahead and show you this final animation that I rendered. I let it render overnight. It didn't take long at all. So this camera path that you see here, that I originally showed you right here, that camera path animation, I let that render overnight. Now let me go ahead and bring that up so you can see what the final output looked like. Go ahead and start it from the beginning, make it a little bit bigger. There we go. Now this is all ray traced, all photorealistic, with the correct lighting and shadows and reflections. Let that play again. Now it's really easy to set up. Like I said, sometimes animation can be extremely daunting. In our software, though, we make it extremely user-friendly and intuitive, and kind of really diminish that learning curve. So while we're in this nice camera here, let's go ahead and turn on ray tracing again. Let this res up. Go ahead and zoom in a little bit. And we'll let the model res up a little bit so you can see some of these nice reflections that we're getting on the cooler from the environment. There we go. So as this reses up, we were able to show you in Bunkspeed Pro how easy it is to import a model, paint it up, add the materials, the textures, change the environments, the lighting. All that can be done easily just by dragging and dropping. You have the use of the web community at your fingertips within our desktop software. That feature alone is amazing. Showed you a little bit about the camera manipulations as far as post-processing, the depth of field. Also showed you how to animate in our software, which is extremely easy. And showed you how to render, create some nice outputs and easy animation. So that right there is the Bunkspeed Pro difference. We're very happy with our suite of products, and we're just excited to tell everybody and show everybody how easy it is to use our user-friendly, intuitive, yet extremely powerful software. And Kevin or Dave, I think we could probably open up the Q&A at this point if you'd like. I'll go ahead and let this res up so you can see how nice and crisp it gets. The noise gets very diminished. The image becomes more clear. The lighting is more accurate. You have nice hard reflections in here. Nice ground glossiness. If you're, for example, if you're designing cell phones or consumer electronics, anything from basically consumer electronics to full-on car exteriors, architecture, interior design, our suite of software really is extremely powerful, especially for creating these nice photorealistic images, highlighting your design and showcasing showcasing your own creativity.
Cool. All right. So let's kick off this Q&A session. David, I guess you could turn on your mic as well. There we go. Cool. All right, so our first question.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yes. All right, so I guess Brent or David can answer this one. This is the first question. How come Q doesn't work? This is from Brent, by the way.
I tried to answer that one directly. Obviously, it should work. You saw it working in Brian's demonstration here. So my best advice is, for us to understand what's not working about it, your best bet is to contact our support line, which is support@bunkspeed.com. Don't hesitate to contact that with any questions, and we'll certainly do our best to make sure it's working for you.
Cool. Here's another question. Please explain the functionality of Power Boost.
Okay, so we didn't touch upon Power Boost in the webinar here, but Power Boost is another product we offer, and it's basically a dedicated network rendering product, and it's typically installed on a dedicated machine. Normally we recommend a fairly high power machine because its job in its entirety is to take and accept people's jobs from their workstations that they send to this machine to render. And the beauty about it is that it lets designers, or lets a work group, keep using our tool on their workstations without ever having to wait for their machine to do the renderings. So using Q, they can submit that job to the Power Boost machine instead of to their local queue, and it renders that job, whether it's a still image, an animation, whatever, and then submits the job when it's done back to the user so they can open it. So that's what Power Boost does.
Okay, and this is a very hardware-specific question. This is also for Brian. What kind of hardware are you using to demo today's webinar?
Today I'm using a dual GPU machine. I believe it has one Quadro 6000 and one Tesla 5000. Is that correct, Dave? I can't really remember.
No, it'd be a Tesla 2070.
That's right, 2070. That's right. So a Quadro 6000 and a Tesla 2070.
Keep in mind, during Brian's demonstration here, he was running this at full screen on a 2560 by 1600 monitor.
Yeah,
so
it's a ginormous monitor.
Yeah, so it was, producing and calculating a lot of pixels, much more so than the average monitor, and you could still see the performance was really, really good.
Yeah,
yeah,
so
and then
move around without any delay, any lag.
Yeah, there looks like the.
One thing to interject about performance is that our renderer can leverage both the CPU, GPUs, or both in hybrid mode. Typically, when you have more modern GPUs, either single or multiple Fermi generation NVIDIA cards, or even Kepler generation, which we do support, those are their newest series, we typically recommend running GPU only, just because your acceleration is really, really fast, much faster than what you would get in hybrid or on just CPU alone. CPU is typically leveraged when your data size exceeds what can fit into the memory on your video cards. So if you have a really large data set and you have a lot of system memory but not a lot of video memory, that's when you would typically use CPU. You get the same exact quality results, it just takes a bit longer to resolve the noise out of the images on CPU. Hybrid is kind of a best of both worlds. We typically recommend using hybrid when your machine is quote-unquote balanced, meaning your CPU power is about equal to your GPU power. A good example of that type of system is when you have dual quad-core or dual 6-core CPUs and a single Fermi Quadro 5000 or Quadro 6000. That would be a pretty balanced machine where hybrid would give you a benefit.
Cool. All right. In that case, let's skip on ahead to Peter's question. Is it possible to export the object and camera?
Yes, absolutely. So objects can be exported either as a whole object basis, meaning your whole scene, or on a per part basis. So if you wanted to just export the Coke can, for example, you could select that part and say File, Export, and when you export, you can choose either an OBJ or an FBX. If you select your entire model, then it would output obviously the whole model via OBJ or FBX. I also added another response that Peter didn't ask a question for, but I thought it would be valid for you guys to know anyway, which is that our FBX import also supports animation. So if you had a baked animation that was done in Maya or 3D Studio Max, or really any one of Autodesk's products, we typically support that animated FBX automatically.
Okay, and what are the options for sending Pro E geometry to Bunkspeed, or any geometry at all to Bunkspeed?
Pro E is a little bit different to the rest of the CAD types we support. In terms of Pro E and Creo, we offer a free plugin. That plugin is available within our community. So if you go to our community, log in. If you don't have credentials for it, go ahead and create them. It's free. There's no obligation. There's no advertising in there, so there's really nothing to worry about. And once you're in there, there's a section called plugins, and we offer a free plugin for Pro E and Creo. What that lets you do is output your geometry from within Pro E or Creo into the Bunkspeed product of your choice, or whatever you have installed at that present time. Most of our other CAD formats are direct importers, so we support, I think, 18 or 19 different CAD types, and those are direct import. That ranges from alias wire to OBJ to IGES to STEP to SolidWorks to SketchUp directly. The list goes on. So we support a wide variety of CAD types. You'll notice too when you're in our community under the plugin section, we do have plugins for other CAD types as well, such as SolidWorks, 3D Studio Max, and SketchUp and Rhino. So there you go. Brian just went to that section, which is directly in our community. And again, these are free to download.
Do you have to have like a Bunkspeed account in order to download and to sample what you guys have to offer at the community? Okay, cool. Are there anything that you guys want to mention too that, like, let's say, what else you guys offer in the communities that you guys have?
The community is a really robust system. So in fact, we just made it public about 3 or 4 months ago, and it contains lots of assets. So when you create an account with us, it gives you access to previously recorded webinars that we have done ourselves. It gives you access to our tutorial videos, which are specific to products. It gives you access to backplates, materials, HDR environments, cameras, pre-prepared BIF files, textures, basically anything that helps you become productive with our tool is available in the community. The great thing about it is that, A, it's open to the public, meaning that users can upload assets they create directly to the community. So if a user has a special backplate that they've designed, they can upload that. If they have a special environment, they can upload that. They can upload their own materials. In fact, there's one guy who he's probably our top-ranking uploader in our community. He's uploaded, I think, about 180 to 200 materials himself. So it's really robust system, and it's growing. Without forgetting that our product is directly tied into the community. So when you go to the web-based library inside our products, that browses the same cloud-based folder that the website goes to. So when somebody puts a new asset online, users of our tool can see it pop up in here automatically. If you notice the little green check marks, that means that those have already been downloaded, at least on Brian's machine. Any ones that don't have a green check mark means that they're new and that he hasn't downloaded or used those yet. So it's a really robust place to spend some of your time, especially if you're a common user of our tool.
Sweet. So, I mean, for those of you guys who are interested about, getting a copy of Bunkspeed, who are not too familiar with what Bunkspeed has to offer, you're not just getting the software, you're getting the options and access to like a whole entire community of assets and, just a place to discuss and, talk about what you're doing and find ways to improve what you're doing too as well. So let's move on to the last question. Let's go on to, BS intended to use a live plugin for HDR Light Studio. Could you guys go into that? Or?
Yes. So right now we implemented a feature which is called Auto Update, and this is for environments and backplates. That's in current versions of Pro. What it does is it basically monitors the state of a file. So if you were to open an HDR in either HDR Light Studio or Photoshop or any other 2D editing program, edit that image, then save it, it would automatically upload or update that environment inside Pro automatically. So you can basically have a window open on your computer, be editing your environment, save it, and then see those updates apply in Pro directly. And again, the reason we did it that way is because we wanted to support more than just HDR Light Studio. With that said, we've been working very closely with HDR Light Studio to update their API to support our development environment. We use a very modern development environment, unlike most other CAD and visualization tools. And up until recently, HDR Light Studio didn't have support for our dev environment, so they've been working on that. It's almost ready, and once it's ready, we'll be able to implement a much tighter integration with some of the features they offer, like live paint and a few other things. So you'll see that coming from us very soon, but in the meantime, there is the feature built in called Auto Update.
Yeah,
all right, cool.
Over here on the right of my screen. Yeah.
All right, so I guess that pretty much sums up the Q&A session. I guess I'll transition back over to my slides.
Great.
Cool.
Thank you guys so much, everyone.
Cool. Yes. Thank you, everybody, and it's a pleasure being here. And Kevin, thanks for hosting us.
No worries. Okay, but don't leave yet. Don't leave yet.
No, you won't.
Cool. All right, so awesome. So let me go back to this right here. And all right, so I want to thank David. I want to thank Brian for being here and just doing this cross-promotional webinar with us as well. If you guys want to find more information about Bunkspeed Pro Suite, do visit their webpage at bunkspeed.com, all right? So, I mean, it's not just software. There is a community. There are assets, and there are people there that are using the same software as you are. So, I mean, it's just overall pretty cool, all right? It's a total package. The all-new Bunkspeed Pro Suite is a combination of Bunkspeed Shot and Move into a single integrated application, and along with many new additional features and productivity tools. Pro Suite is a consolidated effort to provide the creative digital designer in product design, graphic arts, architecture design, and animation the ability to quickly explore various design concepts and communicate their intent with beautifully rendered output in a single image and animation. As the leading online design software store, Novedge pretty much has the best prices around. If you are interested in purchasing for yourself a copy of Bunkspeed Pro Suite, do visit our product page. Together in partnership with Bunkspeed, we are offering the Pro Suite as a digital delivery available worldwide. So if you have any questions about this awesome product, feel free to speak with our sales specialist, Bob at bob@novedge.com. Also, another plug for our communities. Don't miss this opportunity to interact with other like-minded professionals. Be it WikiCAD, Vectorworking, or Rhino Jungo, there is always something useful for our members to check out. Registration is very easy, and with that, you have access to a weekly newsletter where we break down upcoming professional events, news, and opportunities. For access to discussions that matter, register today. Also, if you have any questions about today's webinar and how we're doing, any input, comments, or concerns for Novedge, don't hesitate to contact me at kevin@novedge.com or bob@novedge.com. We're always trying to find a way to improve what we're trying to do too here at today. So in our next upcoming Novedge Best of the Best webinar, episode 65, 3D Application Engineer Paul will be covering the newest features in ZBrush 4R5 in our next upcoming webinar. Get an in-depth understanding of how panel loops can be used for several modeling techniques. Furthermore, Paul will cover hard surface modeling, take a look at new polish features, and finish off the webinar with a BPR render system to create a toon or comic book render. Registration is free, but space is limited. So for more information on how to sign up, check it out at novedge.com/webinar/65. Also, if you missed or had to leave early today, you could rewatch this and our other past webinars by visiting and subscribing to our Novedge webinar series channel on both Vimeo and YouTube, so stay tuned over there. Lastly, follow us on Twitter by our handle at Novedge Store, where we'll share with you the latest buzzworthy industry news, trends, and promos. Join the conversation and follow us today. Brian, David, do you guys have any other last words before we sign off today? Or?
Actually, I just wanted to let the users know that besides the materials and environments and backplates available in our community, there's also tutorials and previous webinars that we've recorded that I've kind of mentioned in the webinar that I just did for users to log on to bunkspeed.com/community, and then they can actually watch some webinars and other tutorials that we've done to help them sort of get over the very small learning curve that we have.
Yeah, so I mean, Bunkspeed, the community, it's not just reading material, so there's a lot of visuals there as well, so do check that out. In that case, on behalf of the team at Novedge and on behalf of Brian and David, thank you guys for watching, and we'll be seeing you guys soon.